Hello, my name is Jolie, and the day I graduated, my world cracked open. My parents handed my sister a bright red BMW like she had won the universe, and to me a mop with a ribbon, saying, "Work hard, loser." I froze, my hands trembling, vision blurring with shame. They laughed, thinking it harmless. But for years I had been invisible, erased from every achievement, every memory that mattered. Was it just a joke or the latest act in a lifetime of subtle betrayals? I stared at them, and for the first time, 4 words escaped me, leaving them utterly dumbfounded. How far would someone go to steal your life and rewrite your story? And how do you finally take it back? They said graduation day would feel like a triumph, a culmination of all the years of hard work, late nights, and quiet sacrifices. I believed them. I wanted to believe them. But instead, I stood there beneath the unrelenting Arizona sun, sweat beading under my graduation cap, waiting for a moment that never belonged to me. Desert Willow High School had gone all out. Rows of pristine white folding chairs lined the freshly cut football field, each one filled with families in their Sunday best, armed with iPhones and camcorders. Teachers clustered near the podium, clapping as names were called. You could practically taste the pride in the air, thick, warm, almost suffocating. But not for me, not for the girl whose name everyone barely remembered. I adjusted my robe, fingers twitching nervously. Maybe this year, maybe today they'd see me. I wasn't expecting fireworks or a standing ovation. I just wanted to be acknowledged, just once. No backhanded compliment, no joke in poor taste, just seen. The announcer's voice boomed from the speakers, echoing across the bleachers. "Valedictorian Isolde Fairchild, of course." She rose gracefully, her heels clicking confidently as she made her way across the stage. Her golden curls shimmered under the sun, perfectly styled like she'd walked out of a commercial. My sister. My older, glossier, always better sister. The kind people remembered at first glance. The one Mum and Dad paraded like a prized racehorse. And now the world was watching her too. Then it happened. A man in a suit, Dad, emerged from the crowd, waving something high in the air. Keys, shiny dangling keys. The crowd murmured, whispers turned to cheers. "Surprise!" Mom yelled, pushing past a few people to hold up a giant banner, in gold lettering, "To our star, Isolde." And there it was, rolled onto the edge of the stage by 2 teachers as if it was some kind of sacred artifact. A brand new cherry red BMW convertible. Convertible! Top down, leather seats sparkling. My stomach dropped. I looked from the car to my parents, to the banner, back to the car. Wait, this couldn't be right. Was it a family gift? Shared? Did they forget I existed again? I swallowed hard. My name hadn't even been called yet. Maybe this was just one surprise. Maybe there was another coming. Then it was my turn. Salutatorian. Jolie Fairchild. The claps were polite, mechanical. A few people cheered out of obligation. I stepped up, legs trembling slightly, trying to smile through the panic beginning to rise. I looked to the side. Maybe there was something waiting. A card, a hug, maybe even hope? Instead, my father grinned wide and held out something wrapped in a shiny red bow. It wasn't a diploma, it wasn't a card, it was a mop, an actual goddamn mop. He leaned in just enough so only the first row could hear, but loud enough to sting. "Work hard, loser," he said, chuckling. Mum followed with a light laugh. "We thought you'd like something practical," she teased, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear like we were just 2 girlfriends sharing a joke. A joke no one else was in on. Laughter bubbled in the rows behind me. A voice whispered, mocking and cruel, "Guess she's heading straight to janitor school." I froze. My vision went fuzzy. I gripped the handle of the mop so tightly my knuckles ached. Every heartbeat echoed in my skull. My throat burned with something I didn't recognize at first. Rage. Not sadness, not disappointment, but pure, blistering rage. I had been invisible my entire life, overshadowed, underestimated, shoved to the sidelines. I thought maybe today they'd toss me a scrap of dignity. I was wrong. Someone in the audience snapped a photo. I heard the shudder, then another and another. Before the ceremony was over, it was online. A tweet, BMW Queen versus Mop Girl. A-reel, a slow zoom on Isolde with her new car. Then a cut to me, awkwardly holding the mop. A comment. One's going places, the other's cleaning up after her. My phone buzzed with notifications. I didn't have to look. I knew. This wasn't just embarrassment. This was annihilation. The ceremony continued around me, names called, cheers given, but I didn't hear any of it. I was stuck in that moment, mop in hand, sweat trickling down my back, shame coiling like a snake around my spine. I turned to my parents, to Isolde, to the crowd that no longer saw me as a graduate, but as a meme. Something broke inside me, not shattered, cracked, shifted. And then I said it, 4 words, quietly, clearly, not screamed, not dramatic, just final. You've lost me forever. And for the first time in my life, I saw their smiles fall. The sound of the band still echoed in my ears as we pulled into the stone-paved driveway of the North Scottsdale Country Club. The sun had dipped low, dragging long orange shadows over the parking lot. I sat stiffly in the back seat, pressed against the door of Dad's SUV, my mop, still wrapped in ribbon, wedged awkwardly between my feet. No one had asked me to come, no one asked if I wanted to, but there I was in the car because pretending everything was fine had always been the safest way to survive. Mum hummed along to some soft rock on the radio, like she hadn't just humiliated me in front of hundreds. Dad tapped the steering wheel in rhythm, still riding the high of public applause for Isolde. She sat in the front passenger seat, already uploading another batch of photos to her story. I caught a glimpse of one, her with the BMW, captioned "Best Grad Gift Ever." #spoiled hashtag, but worth it. I clenched my jaw. Inside the club, white tablecloths and golden chair sashes tried too hard to look expensive. Servers passed hors d'oeuvres like we were at a wedding. Some teachers stood near the bar, sipping wine, laughing like the afternoon hadn't just ended someone's dignity. I stood by the entrance, invisible again. No one looked twice, or maybe they did, and just looked through me. "Hey, mop girl," a classmate whispered as he passed, nudging his friend. They snickered, not even trying to hide it. I didn't react. I couldn't. The humiliation had calcified into something heavier now, harder to carry but easier to control. I felt it settle in my chest, cold and tight. Near the dessert table, Isolde waved me over like I was her guest. "You came," she said, smiling like this was some sweet moment between sisters. Her tone was syrupy, like she was offering me a piece of gum, not years of bitterness. "I wasn't sure I'd be welcome," I said flatly. "Oh, come on," she laughed. "It was just a joke. Lighten up. You always take things so seriously." She tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, her signature move when she wanted to appear sincere. Honestly, everyone loved it. "You're a hit online." I stared at her, trying to decide if she was truly clueless or just cruel. Was this really necessary? Isolde blinked, pretending to hesitate. "Look, it was a moment, okay? Graduation is about memories. People remember the flashy stuff. And let's be real, no one remembers the girl who got straight B's." "Valedictorian and salutatorian," I reminded her. "One speech. You know I was promised one too." She tilted her head. "Oh, that? I thought they said only one slot was open." "I wrote that speech. I practiced for 3 weeks." "Well," she shrugged, picking up a champagne flute, "maybe you should have submitted it earlier." I did. 2 months ago, her smirk slipped, just a fraction. Then it must have gotten lost in the shuffle. I knew that look, that twitch of guilt she thought she masked so well. I saw through it. And later that night, the principal confirmed everything. "I'm sorry, Jolie," he said in the hallway near the coat closet when the music was loud and no one was watching. "You weren't on the final list. Your sister submitted hers a week before the deadline, and we didn't get a second name. I assumed it was a joint effort." Of course he did. Everyone always assumed I was just trailing behind her brilliance. Back inside, I found myself next to a family friend, one of Mum's yoga pals. She patted my arm. "You're such a good sport," she said. "Isolde told me you helped plan that whole moment." "You really leaned into the humor." "That's brave," I didn't respond. I just smiled politely and walked away. Out on the balcony, the desert air cooled the sweat on my neck. I looked out over the golf course, thinking about every time my name was left off the list. The school art contest when my submission went missing. The science fair where my model was mysteriously dismantled the morning of. Birthday cards with just Isolde's name signed in glitter. Never mind. Family photo albums with pages that skipped my face or worse, cropped me out like a mistake. This had been building for years. The mop wasn't the first insult, it was just the most public. My chest tightened, but not with sadness. Something else stirred, not rage, not yet, but a sharp clarity. I could feel the weight of every erased moment pressing down on me, hardening into resolve. I stepped back inside. Isolde stood near the punch bowl, her tiara tilted just so, talking to a small circle of admirers. She saw me approach and raised her glass. There she is. The star of the show. I walked up, stopped inches from her and met her eyes. Keep laughing while you can. Her smile faltered for half a second, then returned wider, smugger, but something in my voice must have reached her, because her grip on the glass tightened. Light from my bedside lamp cast long shadows across my childhood room. At nearly 9 o'clock, I stood by the window, watching the red BMW parked in our driveway, bright and arrogant, a trophy everyone saw except me. My bedroom still smelled faintly of lavender from Mum's linen spray. The walls were pale blue, shelves lined with books I'd never dared to show off. Pictures of Isolde in caps and gowns, happy-faced, framed in gold. Me? A blank spot in every frame, or so it felt. I closed the window gently, that soft click echoing louder than I expected. The air inside was cooler than the desert night outside, but suffocating all the same. I slung my backpack over a chair, sat at my desk, and flipped open my laptop. Dust motes floated in the lamp's glow as if time itself had forgotten this room. I opened the scholarship draft folder, the one I tucked away 6 months ago when hope still felt possible. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I read the words I once typed: volunteer hours, awards, plans for college. It read like my own life story. Then I dug deeper into archived emails, one from a foundation. Congratulations, Isolde Whitmore. Your scholarship has been granted, I stared. That draft I had saved, that draft I had sent. The sentences, my sentences, word for word. I leaned back, heart thudding, feeling the sting of betrayal fresh and sharp. Funny how the mailbox never brought that letter, that envelope with my teacher's handwriting. I remembered handing it to Isolde after school, pressed it into her hand, her promise floating in the air. Don't worry, I'll drop it off. I closed my eyes and saw my teacher's genuine pride, something I'd treasured secretly. Then I saw Mum's laugh, Isolde's shrug. I saw how it was never submitted, or maybe submitted under a different name. My palms felt slick. I reached across the desk, found an old birthday card from Grandma, the one where she wrote, I believe in you, little firefly. I'd kept it hidden when Isolde borrowed it, to have something of mine. Funny how things like words can be stolen as well as awards. I thought back to my 9th birthday, balloons, cake, the candlelight flickering, and I told Isolde, clinging to her hand, one day I want to win something just for me. She smiled, squeezed me, then later that night told everyone I had said, I want to be like Isolde when I grow up. I had wanted to fade into her shadow then, something I realized only now. My voice had been edited from my story long ago. Night deepened. Through the window I could see the moon, but not its reflection. I switched on my phone, looked up Isolde Whitmore scholarship fraud. Nothing, no accusations, no disclosures, just proud posts from Isolde about future. Quiet footsteps outside the door made me snap awake. Mum's voice muffled in the hallway. Did you send the package today? Lilith asked. Isolde hoisted her voice sharp. Yes, can't people just drop it? I didn't move. My heart hitched. Their words, any part of them, could be about that scholarship. My draft. My effort. I pressed back against the wall, breathing low so they wouldn't hear. Silence reclaimed the room. I placed the birthday card and recommendation letter side by side on the desk, then pulled out a photo album. Pages filled with Isolde. Dance recitals, science fairs, accolades. One page caught me, an award plaque with Isolde's name engraved. It was my plaque. I helped paint the letters. I glued that background. I stayed up late rehearsing speeches that ended up being hers. They cut me out of the picture later, literally, with photo editing. I realized they'd erased me because I was never useful in the spotlight. A flicker of anger warmed in me. Not the hollow kind, something sharp, purposeful. I stood pacing as the moonlight shifted. I picked up a trash can, tossed in old drafts, wrinkled application forms that bore my name. I paused before shutting the lid. My reflection in the dark window pane stared back. I could see tears, but also clarity. I pushed the trash can aside. I opened a blank document on the laptop. My fingers hovered, then typed, To whom it may concern. My voice trembled, but I kept going. I wrote about every time I was promised recognition, then denied it. I wrote the dates, names, conversations. I saved it under Truth Journal. It felt like weighing myself with scales for the first time. Downstairs sooner than I expected, footsteps. Dad's boots against the hardwood. I closed the laptop, concealed the documents. I instinctively erased the browser history. I pulled off the battery from the mouse. I flipped off the lamp, left only moonlight spilling across the desk. Lying in bed, I replayed his laughter, her smiles, their photo posts. I heard the phrase Mum used in the driveway. You always take things seriously. I used to accept that as a compliment. Now it felt like chains. I thought perhaps my voice was always my own, but I was never allowed to speak. Curled inside my blanket, I whispered into darkness, "This ends. Starting tomorrow, they'll hear me." I closed the lid on my laptop and let the hum of the fan fill the room. Night had come, though the Arizona sky still held a hint of orange where the sunset refused to fully retire. I sat on the edge of my bed, the sheets cool beneath me, and the weight of what I'd discovered settled more heavily than exhaustion. I was no longer just hurt, I was angry and awake. The next afternoon, I made my way to the Scottsdale Public Library. I needed a space where my phone's notifications couldn't drown me, where I could think straight. I found a long wooden table by a window that nodded toward the mountains and sat up there, coffee in hand. Light filtered in through blinds, dust motes dancing. It felt normal, easy, safe, until I logged into my high school email account. My inbox was empty. Unread messages counted 0. But then I found one from the Scholarship Foundation. "We never received confirmation of your attendance." Award revoked, I stared. My attendance confirmation had been sent. I remembered using Mum's printer, asking Isolde to drive me to mail it, because our mailbox is 5 blocks away. She agreed. I believed her. I closed the browser, heart churning. I couldn't breathe. That revoked word felt sharp, like betrayal carved into me. I leaned forward, braced myself. A slow realization, the email was opened, but by whom? There was a last viewed timestamp, a time I was at work, at school, or somewhere public, but never by me. Moments later, scrolling through an old school forum, I clicked on a link, my name on a post, after a small essay contest in junior year. Cheers, praise, community members complimented me for my insight. All the comments vanished, flagged, deleted. Only one remained. "You should give credit to your sister. She's the real brain, a sting I swallowed years ago, but now it burned." Riley, who I'd just met online when she blogged about prom storyboards, messaged me. Her words were quiet, simple. "I remember who really did all the planning for prom. They gave her credit, but it was you." Her message startled me because it required no apology, no performance. It was truth. It laid bare what I feared and thought for so long. My fingers trembled over the keyboard. Truth.txt. I opened the file I had started earlier. I copied my scholarship draft into it. I included lines from that email I never got, from that forum, from teacher praise I was left unaware of. Then I paused. That pause was heavy, because connecting the dots meant admitting something awful. This was never a one-time thing. My achievements had been systematically erased, not just by strangers or luck or misunderstanding, but by people who knew me, including family. I left the library with papers in hand. The drive home was quiet. Wind whispered through acacia trees. I focused on each stoplight, each turn, trying not to think how Isolde would spin this if I spoke. I rehearsed words in my head. You took my voice. But it wouldn't just be about voice, it'd be about respect. Back at home, I found Mum in the kitchen, folding napkins. Dad appeared at his study door, eyes flicked to me. Isolde laughed with friends in the living room. Their laughter felt like knives. I set my bag down, stood tall though my limbs felt leaden. "I saw it," I said, voice even. "The email! The forum! Riley's message." I held the printed scholarship email in my hand. It trembled slightly, but I held tight. Isolde paused mid-laugh. Mum faltered by the table. Dad's face tightened. "What are you talking about?" Isolde asked. Her tone was soft, calculated, as if disappointed in me for rocking peace. "I'm talking about everything you erased. Everything people cheered, behind your back. I'm talking about the award I should have had Mum's eyes watered. Either guilt or shock." Dad cleared his throat. "Honey, you know how deadlines work." "Don't tell me deadlines. Show me proof." Silence pooled. Outside, the desert breeze rattled the front door. For a moment, I saw their breach of trust in full view. The broken promises, the decisions made without me, the picture frames that skipped my face. I laid the papers across the kitchen island. Email printouts, forum screenshots, Riley's words, teacher notes, the card Grandma gave me. Isolde stood across the counter, her posture stiff. "This is ridiculous, Jolie. Why bring this up now?" Her voice cracked, not strong, just loud. Because I can't watch you build your perfect narrative with my bricks and call it your own. Her smile slipped into confusion. Mum gasped. Dad rubbed his forehead. I felt something shift in the room, a power I never let exist. My voice loud enough to disrupt the silence. They didn't clap. No one cheered. But I saw fear flicker in Isolde's eyes, guilt in Mum's shoulders, disbelief on Dad's lips. For the first time, I wasn't alone. The morning light slipped quietly across the kitchen counter, brushing the shiny surface of the coffee pot as I walked in. Sunday was usually calm, filled with the aroma of scrambled eggs and toasted bread, the faint hum of my father flipping newspapers, and the chatter of my siblings. Today it felt different, tense, like the air itself held its breath. The red BMW gleamed through the front window as if it were a silent taunt. My stomach churned, not from hunger, but from the thought of walking into the same space where my own family had laughed at me just days ago. Isolde sat at the head of the table, her hair catching the sunlight in a way that screamed confidence. She spoke loudly about the new car, her voice carrying over the table, and Desmond chuckled alongside her. Their eyes occasionally flicked toward me, a mixture of curiosity and superiority. I walked toward the table, carrying my untouched coffee cup, feeling like a ghost in my own home. No one acknowledged my presence, just like they hadn't at graduation. I swallowed the tight knot, forming in my throat, and took a deep breath. I set my coffee down carefully, letting the cup clink softly against the ceramic plate, a small rebellion against invisibility. I'm writing an open letter. About the truth, I said, voice even but firm, cutting through the brunch chatter like a knife. The room froze for a fraction of a second. Isolde's smile faltered but quickly returned, forced and sharp. Nobody's interested in your version, she scoffed, waving her hand as if dismissing an inconsequential thought. I didn't retreat, not this time. Years of being unseen had sharpened a patience that now translated into precision. I pulled my laptop from my bag and set it on the kitchen table, opening the document that held everything, drafts, emails, screenshots of deleted forum comments, Riley's messages. My eyes scanned the words, ensuring each line carried the weight of truth, the subtle hints of humiliation turned revelation. I wasn't here to yell, I was here to expose, to illuminate the cracks in the carefully constructed facades that had excluded me for too long. Later, Merrick knocked softly on my bedroom door. I saw your speech. I knew it. You wrote it first, didn't you? His voice was low, earnest, a bridge of trust forming in the silence. I nodded, surprised. No one had ever believed me without proof. I felt a flicker of warmth, a reminder that not all allies were lost in this family. Merrick stepped inside, giving me a small, supportive smile, and for the first time I felt the stirrings of strength not dependent solely on confrontation. Returning to the kitchen, I noticed the bracelet, a delicate piece of jewellery once belonging to our late grandmother, now on Isolde's wrist. Her casual tone didn't mask the sharp edge beneath it. It looked better on me. My fingers tightened around the handle of the coffee mug, knuckles white. I leaned forward slightly, voice calm but cutting. It was never yours to begin with. Like the rest, silence descended quickly, thick and heavy, mingling with the sunlight, now drifting lower across the counters. The gravity of the moment settled in. I was no longer the quiet observer. Every slight, every stolen acknowledgement, every erased achievement had coalesced into this point of quiet assertion. I looked directly at Isolde, and my voice carried the weight of all the years. You've taken everything, but I promise you this. If you try to take one more thing, I'll burn your story to the ground. My declaration was not a threat born of impulsive anger. It was a measured warning, a line drawn with precision and purpose. The room was still, even the hum of the refrigerator seemed to hush. Desmond shifted in his seat, sensing the tension but unsure how to intervene. Lilith exchanged glances with him, the unspoken acknowledgement of the family's fracture hanging in the air. Isolde's expression flickered, a flash of indignation, a shadow of guilt, quickly replaced by defiance. This was not a simple sibling spat anymore. It was a reckoning. The power dynamics had shifted. I wasn't just a victim of erasure anymore. I was an active force, poised and deliberate. The kitchen felt smaller, the walls seeming to lean in, reflecting back years of hidden grievances. I sipped my coffee slowly, letting the heat steady my nerves, each swallow reinforcing the control I had over the moment. Every observation, every memory sharpened my awareness. The slight nods my teachers gave Isolde when I should have received praise, the misattributed accomplishments, the subtle erasures that had quietly dictated my place in this family. All of it had led to this confrontation, subtle but undeniably potent. Isolde shifted in her chair, arms crossed, her eyes narrowing. She attempted a laugh, fragile, attempting to mask the unease she felt now that the scales were balancing. I ignored it. My focus was unyielding. The sunlight caught the edge of the bracelet again, glinting. Once a token of warmth and familial memory, now a symbol of misappropriated recognition. I considered every stolen moment, every borrowed achievement, every slight I had endured in silence, and let that knowledge fuel the resolve in my tone. I am done standing quietly, I added softly, each word deliberate, each syllable resonating. From now on, everything I create, everything I achieve, will have my name attached. And if anyone tries to rewrite it, like they always have, they will face consequences that won't be easy to ignore. My eyes met Isolde's, steady, unwavering. The subtle tremor in her jaw betrayed the impact of my words. If she wasn't used to resistance from me, she wasn't prepared for the meticulous planning that had gone into every element of my defense. The room remained hushed. Even Merrick's presence seemed to amplify the silence, his small nod a reminder of quiet solidarity. Lilith's expression was unreadable, a neutral canvas, perhaps surprised by the intensity that had finally emerged from me. Every heartbeat seemed amplified in that space, each second stretching as if the room itself waited for the outcome. I took a deliberate breath, feeling the pulse of authority finally in my control. For years I had been invisible, overlooked, misrepresented. Today that narrative shifted. I didn't need applause or recognition, I needed acknowledgement. And in that moment, acknowledgement had arrived in the form of a warning, calm, precise, and unforgettable. The quiet simmered. Outside, the wind rustled the mesquite trees, carrying with it the distant hum of traffic, a mundane reminder of the world beyond this kitchen. But inside, the weight of unspoken truths, of silent rage now voiced, filled every corner. I felt the first surge of empowerment that comes not from anger, but from knowing that your words carry weight and consequence. The sun was already dipping below the horizon as I parked my car outside the neighborhood center, the faint orange glow catching the edges of the tall pines lining the street. The community event was buzzing with chatter, laughter, and the occasional clink of coffee cups as women and men milled around, exchanging smiles and handshakes. Isolde, as expected, stood at the podium, a picture of confidence, her smile almost too perfect. She was dressed in a crisp navy blazer, her notes in hand, exuding authority in every measured movement, and as she began to speak about leadership and ambition, taking credit for organizing past school events, the very projects I had orchestrated, I felt a quiet fire building within me. I stepped into the auditorium quietly, letting the hum of conversation wash over me like a tide I was immune to. The audience barely noticed me at first, consumed by Isolde's eloquence and charm, but as she detailed each achievement, each lesson she had supposedly led, I felt the walls of my restraint beginning to crack. My hands tightened around the straps of my bag as I walked down the aisle, each step deliberate, measured, preparing for the moment I would claim. The Q&A session arrived faster than I expected, and I could see a few heads turning in curiosity, though most were still caught up in Isolde's narrative. Then the microphone slid toward me. The room seemed to slow, every pair of eyes pivoting in my direction. I inhaled deeply, feeling the surge of empowerment ripple through my chest. Calmly, I said the words that had been building for years. "Let's tell the truth, shall we?" The 4 words fell into the room like a stone dropped into still water. Whispers erupted, the audience collectively leaning forward, sensing the tension and knowing something unseen was about to surface. Riley, sitting near the back, lifted his camera subtly, documenting the moment. His presence felt like a lifeline, a bridge to validation I had longed for but never received. "Wait, wasn't she the real prom coordinator?" someone whispered, voice low but audible enough to turn a few heads. I felt the satisfaction of that first ripple of doubt wash over Isolde's confident facade. Her smile faltered, a flicker of unease betraying her practiced poise. Then came the voice that cut through the murmurs, firm and unmistakable. "She's not wrong." Jolie wrote that entire proposal. I still have the file. Mr. Lane, my old teacher, stood at the edge of the room, holding a small weathered binder. The shift was instantaneous. The energy of the room realigned, faces pivoting toward Isolde, the once unquestioned authority now shadowed by revelation. My eyes met his briefly, a silent nod acknowledging the courage it took for him to speak, for him to validate years of stolen credit. I took another measured breath, letting the weight of history settle into the air between us. My voice carried across the auditorium as I continued, firm yet controlled. For years you wore the crown I built, but tonight I'm taking back my name. The silence that followed was tangible, almost vibrating, as if the walls themselves had paused to hear it. Eyes widened, mouths slightly agape. Some audience members whispered hurriedly, uncertain how to react to this new, undeniable truth. Isolde's cheeks flushed pink, a stark contrast to the composed mask she always wore. Her hands gripped the podium, knuckles white, and I could see the subtle tremor in her posture. She had no words ready, no rehearsed lines that could counter the truth unraveling in front of everyone. And for the first time, I felt the quiet thrill of power, not born of malice, but of justice finally served. Merrick leaned against the side wall, his posture casual but attentive, recording every moment on his phone. Lilith, standing near the front, looked between us, her expression a mixture of shock and cautious admiration. Even a few of the community members who had been silent till now began to murmur affirmations, nodding subtly, recognizing the courage it took to speak up publicly. The event's organizer, usually preoccupied with timekeeping and logistics, approached hesitantly. "Jolie, are you—" she began, then stopped, realizing that the moment didn't need anyone else's framing. The atmosphere had shifted entirely. The energy no longer revolved around Isolde's words alone, but around the unmasking of a carefully constructed illusion. I looked around, feeling the surge of years of quiet endurance transforming into assertive presence. Each stolen moment, every subtle erasure, each manipulation and misattribution had built the momentum leading to this juncture. My hands rested lightly on the microphone, but my mind was sharp, cataloguing every face, every subtle reaction, every flicker of acknowledgement I had long been denied. The whispers grew, spreading like wildfire. "She's telling the truth," someone said, leaning toward their neighbor. Another added, "I knew something was off. She deserved the credit." Riley panned his camera toward the crowd, capturing the shift in dynamics, documenting the subtle but unmistakable victory in perception. My heart pounded, not with arrogance, but with the satisfaction of long overdue recognition. Isolde, finally finding her voice, attempted a laugh, brittle, forced, and hollow. "You think this changes anything?" she demanded, though the question fell flat against the undeniable evidence displayed in the room. My reply was soft, controlled, deliberate. "It changes everything. Truth has a way of catching up, even with those who hide behind smiles." The murmur of agreement rippled through the audience, affirming what I had known in my heart for years. I stepped back slightly, releasing the mic for the next question. Though my presence continued to dominate the room, the balance of power, once skewed entirely against me, now leaned in my favor. And in that moment, I understood something vital. This wasn't just about recognition. It was about the reclamation of voice, the reclaiming of identity, the unwavering assertion that I would no longer be invisible in the narrative of my own life. As the evening continued, conversations shifted. Small clusters formed, discussing the revelations, exchanging glances and soft comments. Isolde moved from podium to periphery. Her previous authority diminished, visibly recalibrating her strategy. I stayed composed, observing every interaction, every glance cast my way. This was the moment years of silent endurance had prepared me for, poised, intelligent, unflinching. And when I finally stepped down from the stage, the applause still tentative but growing, I felt the first real sense of liberation. My name, my efforts, my voice, finally recognized and no longer borrowed, no longer erased. The weight of the past began to lift, replaced by a sense of purpose and clarity that had been absent for far too long. The evening air outside smelled faintly of desert sage, cool and comforting as I walked past the crowd, my steps steady, deliberate, carrying the newfound confidence that came from finally being seen. The morning light spilled softly across the kitchen, but the warmth it brought didn't reach me. My phone buzzed relentlessly on the counter, notifications piling like a mounting wave I wasn't sure I could control. The moment I'd reclaimed my name and voice at the community event seemed almost surreal now, overshadowed by the storm Isolde had unleashed online. She had gone public, a live stream titled, in her ever-dramatic way, "When Family Turns Toxic." In it, she painted me as jealous, mentally unstable, obsessed with ruining her reputation. The video had barely gone up before the notifications exploded. Some sympathetic, many venomous, but all invasive, all undermining. I sank into the chair at the breakfast nook, coffee untouched. Merrick shuffled in quietly, eyes red from restless sleep or perhaps crying, I couldn't tell. "Jolie, why is she doing this?" he asked softly, his voice tremulous, a mix of fear and exasperation. I thought she'd stop." My heart ached as I placed a hand over his. "I know, little brother, but she's desperate to stay on top." I could see the helplessness in his posture, the way he tried to hide behind me, even though he was technically bigger than I was in age. He was already a casualty in this silent war. By mid-morning, the photos had started circulating. Isolde's team had dug through old family albums, edited images with captions suggesting bitterness, envy, and instability. The mop photo prominently featured. Every tag, every comment, a precision strike aimed to discredit me. I stared at the screen, my fingers hovering, resisting the urge to strike back impulsively. The anger in my chest burned, but I forced myself to breathe, to measure my response. Every reaction she provoked was an opportunity for her control. I would not hand it back. Riley, always dependable, had sent a flurry of messages. "They're spinning it hard," he typed. "Keep calm, record everything, and respond strategically. You've got the truth, Jolie. That's your weapon." His words steadied me, reminding me that I wasn't alone. I reviewed the emails, the documents, the draft speeches, every piece of evidence meticulously preserved. They were not just proof, they were armor, each one a shield against the lies being poured across the web. That afternoon, I watched Lilith from the kitchen window, pretending neutrality but whispering into her phone, the words unmistakable even from a distance. "We have to protect Isolde's reputation." The betrayal stung, deeper than any online comment could. She wasn't just ignoring the truth, she was actively undermining it, aligning with a false narrative to shield her sister, who had spent years erasing my accomplishments. I felt the familiar mix of disbelief and rage, but I had no time for passive despair. By evening, I had consolidated my plan. I moved from the kitchen to my office, a room I'd made into a quiet fortress. The screens glowed softly, illuminating documents, photos, and recordings I had collected over years. Each item told a story Isolde had tried to steal, each one a testament to my persistence. I organized them, drafted responses, prepared carefully worded statements for those who mattered, those whose opinions held weight in our small community. My chest rose and fell, steady, empowered by the knowledge that this was no longer about hiding or surviving. It was about taking action. I stepped outside for a moment, the night air cool against my skin, to see the red BMW parked across the driveway, a stark reminder of Isolde's showmanship. My reflection shimmered faintly against its polished surface. I studied the woman staring back at me, poised, composed, no trace of the silent submission that had defined my youth. "You want war, Isolde? Then get ready," I whispered under my breath, my voice strong, unwavering. It was a declaration not just to her, but to myself. The era of invisibility was over. The phone buzzed again, this time Merrick's text. "Are you sure you can do this alone?" I smiled faintly, thinking of Riley and the meticulous documentation I had assembled. "No one wins alone," I typed back, but I knew something crucial. Sometimes the most potent battles were fought from a place of calculated restraint, not reckless emotion. The fight was coming, and I would meet it not with panic or tears, but with clarity and precision. Hours later, the family home fell into quiet. Isolde's live stream had ended, but the echoes of her narrative continued to ripple through social media. I reviewed every comment, every photo, every distorted caption, and yet with every manipulated image she uploaded, my resolve hardened. I had the facts, the proof, the context. I would not just defend myself, I would dismantle the lies, systematically, carefully. Riley's voice in my ear during a brief call reminded me, "The truth always finds a way, Jolie." And when it does, it hits like lightning. I let his words sink in as I stood at the window again, looking at the house, the driveway, the car that had once been a symbol of my invisibility, now reflecting my determined eyes. I traced the path my strategy would take, step by step, ensuring no miscalculation, no emotional overreach. As the evening deepened, I felt the first stirrings of exhilaration. Not triumph, not yet, but the thrill of impending justice. The house, once a place of quiet humiliation, now felt like a command center, a space where I could strategize, protect Merrick, and reclaim my story piece by piece. The shadows of betrayal hung around me, but they no longer weighed me down. They fueled the fire. I prepared a careful post for social media, a brief but potent counterstatement, backed by verifiable evidence prepared for Riley to record and share. Each word was precise, designed to pierce through the fog of manipulation Isolde had spun. Tonight, the first volley would land. I would not speak from fear or desperation. I would speak from certainty, from years of ignored efforts and stolen recognition. Standing by the window one last time before logging off, I whispered to the night air, steady and resolute, "It's time you see who I really am." My reflection in the glass mirrored the woman ready to confront lies with truth, betrayal with strategy, humiliation with dignity. The war had begun, and I was prepared to meet it head-on. The week after the community event passed in a tense blur, as if time itself were holding its breath. I barely left my small apartment, shunning calls, messages, even social media notifications. Every buzz on my phone felt like a countdown to another lie Isolde might spin. I moved silently between stacks of folders and piles of documents, each meticulously labelled, time-stamped, and cross-referenced. This was no longer about anger or humiliation. It was about precision, the quiet assembling of proof, an arsenal I would wield when the moment was right. The apartment, normally a sanctuary, had become a vault of my life's achievements, the ones erased, appropriated, and twisted by those I had trusted most. I sifted through scholarship emails, drafts of speeches, committee confirmations, and even bank statements. One particular transfer caught my eye, a sizable donation listed under my name, directed to what was supposed to be a community project I had conceived, but funneled, unsurprisingly, to Isolde's so-called non-profit. The realization didn't just sting, it galvanized me. Paper trails don't lie, and tonight the truth would speak louder than any insult, rumor, or viral image. Riley had agreed to host a live stream on his podcast channel, a small, respectable platform, but one that commanded attention among those who mattered. I spent hours rehearsing the flow, ensuring clarity in how each piece of evidence would be presented. My hands ached from arranging papers, scrolling through digital archives, and typing precise notes, but every ache reinforced my resolve. Merrick had been my silent cheerleader, offering quiet encouragement and occasional sharp observations that cut through my fog of frustration. His voice, though soft, carried the weight of family loyalty and belief. When the evening arrived, the city lights of Scottsdale shimmered through my apartment window. I glanced out, noting the red BMW across the street, a gleaming reminder of past injustice. Its presence no longer intimidated me, it fueled me. I donned a simple outfit, comfortable but presentable, and took a deep breath, centering myself. Riley arrived promptly, camera equipment in tow, and we ran through final checks. Each microphone, every cable, every angle had to be perfect. One misstep could undermine the impact of what I was about to reveal. Going live felt surreal. The familiar digital interface seemed almost intimate in its immediacy. "Good evening, everyone," Riley began, his voice calm, steady, setting the stage. I joined him, settling in front of the camera, my posture upright, gaze fixed. My heart pounded up, not from fear, but from anticipation, the electric thrill of reclaiming my narrative. "Tonight," I said, voice controlled, resonant, "we're going to untangle the truth from years of lies." The evidence flowed seamlessly, emails showing draft speeches, stolen word for word, recommendation letters that never reached committees, and meticulous screenshots of social media manipulation. My digital archive illuminated the systematic nature of the erasure, painting a comprehensive picture that left little room for doubt. For each stolen accolade, there was a timestamp. For each appropriated idea, a corresponding proof of ownership. I watched as Riley switched to screens, highlighting the bank statement, the document showing that Isolde had claimed credit for funds I had helped raise. The live chat erupted in real time, viewers reacting, questioning, and documenting alongside us. Merrick's pre-recorded segment followed, and my heart clenched at the sight of him recounting what he had witnessed. Isolde taking my graduation speech, my mother justifying it as for the family image. His words landed hard, the kind of testimony that cannot be dismissed or spun. The chat exploded, hashtags like hashtag justice for Jolie and hashtag truth. Matters trending almost instantly. I felt the adrenaline surge through me. Not vindictive, not gloating, but a steady, precise satisfaction. This was right. This was the unvarnished truth finally making its mark. Throughout the live stream, I maintained composure, despite the surging emotion. Rage and relief intertwined, but I held firm. Every time my fingers brushed a stack of evidence or my eyes met the camera, I reminded myself that patience, clarity, and control were as crucial as the facts themselves. The moments of doubt, the whispers of anxiety, they all dissipated as the audience absorbed the narrative in real time. Every comment confirming recognition, every viewer acknowledging the authenticity, strengthened the invisible threads I had been weaving for months. After nearly 2 hours, the session concluded. Riley thanked viewers for their time, for their patience, and for giving the truth a space to be heard. I closed the laptop slowly, exhaling deeply. A part of me wanted to smile, to feel triumph, but the victory was tempered with reflection. It was not revenge, it was justice, meticulously curated and indisputable. I didn't need revenge, I murmured aloud, letting the words settle in the quiet of my apartment. Just the truth. But it's coming for her anyway. Even as I spoke, I knew the next phase would test every ounce of composure I had cultivated. Isolde's reactions would be immediate, chaotic, perhaps even vicious. But tonight I had established the undeniable reality, a foundation strong enough to weather any counterattack. The city hummed quietly outside, unaware of the digital storm that had just erupted, unaware of the recalibration of power within a family, long fractured by envy, neglect, and deceit. I gathered the evidence, filing each document with care, knowing the archive would be my arsenal for what was yet to come. Merrick, sitting beside me, whispered, "You did it. You finally did it." I looked at him, gratitude and pride reflected in my eyes, and nodded. This was more than proof. It was liberation. And while the digital applause, the trends, and the comments affirmed the reach of the truth, the quiet satisfaction of standing unwavering in my integrity felt unmatched. Tonight, the story had been corrected, and the first wave of consequence had begun. 3 weeks had passed since the live stream, and with each sunrise over Flagstaff's crisp autumn mornings, I felt the slow pulse of calm settling into my life. My new apartment, small but mine, offered a quiet distance from the chaos that had consumed Scottsdale. Moving here had been an intentional act, a way to reclaim physical space, yes, but also to carve out mental clarity. Sunlight streamed through large windows, bouncing off pale walls, warming the modest kitchen where I made my morning coffee. The steam rose lazily, curling like a gentle reminder that life moves on even when the heart carries scars. I sipped slowly, savouring the solitude, aware that for the first time in years, no one was demanding my attention, my approval, or my silence. The inbox, previously a source of tension and alerts, now displayed a semblance of peace. Messages from supporters, old classmates, and colleagues poured in, sharing gratitude and praise for standing up and exposing the truth. But beyond the digital applause, there was a quiet reckoning taking place back in the public sphere. Isolde's carefully constructed image had begun to crumble. Sponsors quietly withdrew, leaving statements about reassessing partnerships, circulating in local news feeds. The community board overseeing her programs moved decisively, removing her from leadership positions. Legally, there wasn't enough evidence to press charges. Her manipulation had always been just beneath the threshold of actionable fraud, yet the social consequences were swift and undeniable. Public opinion, often fickle, had begun its own sort of judgment. Lilith, who had maintained her distance during the weeks following the livestream, finally ceased communication entirely. The once frequent polite check-ins vanished, leaving silence where passive complicity had lingered. Desmond, predictably, receded from social media, his glossy online presence evaporating under the weight of public scrutiny. For the first time, the isolation that had felt oppressive in my youth now resembled justice in its own quiet form. Though it did not erase the pain, it validated every frustration I had endured, every quiet moment of doubt, and every careful step toward reclaiming my voice. The first time I heard Merrick's voice in weeks was through a short, hesitant voicemail. His tone was modest but firm, carrying the resonance of someone who had learned from observing, from feeling the weight of truth. "I'm proud of you," he said. "I didn't have your courage, but I learned from it." His words, simple as they were, pierced through layers of lingering bitterness and self-doubt. I leaned back against the chair, tears gathering unbidden, and for the first time in decades, I felt genuinely seen by someone I loved unconditionally. My brother had found his own small courage through mine, and that mirrored triumph bolstered my own sense of closure. Yet reflection brought more than satisfaction. I returned to my digital archive, the meticulous collection of proof, testimony, emails, and timestamps that had been both my shield and my weapon. Sitting at my desk, I ran my fingers across the folders, pausing at the names of documents that once symbolized theft, erasure, and invisibility. I didn't delete a single file. Instead, I consolidated them, titling the master folder, History. Not mine alone. Each file represented a memory reclaimed, a misappropriated accomplishment restored to its rightful place in my story. This act, while small and private, symbolized the boundary I had drawn between past injustices and the life I was building now. Outside, the streets were hushed, the crunch of leaves underfoot reminding me of the passage of seasons. The world had not paused, nor had it reversed the injustices, but it had listened in its own way to a voice that had long been silenced. The local news anchor's voice, filtered through a podcast replay, narrated the public fall of Isolde's credibility, a subtle yet undeniable consequence. A once prominent figure in community leadership now faces public skepticism and loss of support, the anchor reported, the phrasing neutral yet laden with implied reproach. No legal verdict had been reached, but the narrative had shifted irreversibly. As I sipped another cup of coffee, my phone chimed. A new message from a local women's nonprofit. They wanted me to speak at an upcoming event about resilience, the pursuit of truth, and the importance of claiming one's voice. My fingers hovered over the reply button. I hesitated, acknowledging that this was not a call to erase past scars, but a bridge toward something forward-looking. The idea of speaking publicly, not out of vengeance but from lived experience, filled me with cautious optimism. It's not healing yet, I whispered to myself, but it's hope. The weight of old betrayals felt lighter, not erased, but contextualized within a story that had reclaimed its protagonist. Later that evening, I stood by the window overlooking the quiet streets, the amber glow of autumn streetlights reflected off the glass, casting long shadows across the apartment floor. I thought of the red BMW still in Scottsdale, parked as an emblem of past cruelty, now distant, almost irrelevant. My reflection stared back at me, resolute, tempered by the journey and carrying a subtle smile of quiet vindication. The fight had not ended entirely. Emotional residue lingered, but the storm had passed, and in its wake, clarity and agency remained. I opened the archive once more, letting the documents rest gently within their folder. Each piece, once a weapon, now felt like a testament to endurance, a record of survival. Even the smallest acknowledgements from friends, former classmates, and mentors felt amplified in their significance. The space I had claimed, both physically and emotionally, allowed me to breathe deeply for the first time in decades. The final message on my phone brought a gentle pang of expectation, a reminder that life moves forward and so must I. I smiled faintly, not because everything was resolved, but because I was finally stepping into a life shaped by my choices, by truth, and by a reclamation of voice long denied. The past remained etched in memory and documented in files, but the future stretched quietly, inviting me to participate fully, with caution, wisdom, and the resilience that had carried me through every silent humiliation, betrayal, and misappropriation. I exhaled slowly, feeling the stillness in my apartment, the hum of life beyond the walls, and the promise of new beginnings. The storm had passed, leaving me intact, stronger, and prepared. It's not healing yet, I whispered one last time, but it's hope. As we close this chapter of Jolie's story, it's a stark reminder that our voices matter, even when they've been silenced, overlooked, or stolen. How would you respond if your achievements were erased by those closest to you? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life family stories that inspire, challenge, and resonate.